Hi, good evening. Today is September 8th, 2025, and it's about 7:21 p.m. And I'm recording this video from my home at 26714 Valley Drive, Katy, Texas, 77494. And my name is Reynaldo J. Aguiar Marcano. So today I would like to give a brief update about the the events at the court today. It was quite an interesting day. Oh boy, what a time to be alive. Um, so, well, let me start by saying that before we got into it, right, with the court, with the judge, Morgan Heibner or Hipner, to be honest, I think I mispronounce her name half of the time. So she made sure to convey that it was strictly prohibited to record anything that happened in the room, in the courtroom, and then she made the point to ask the judge in front of me. So the judge told me, right, not to record anything, and she made the point to ask the judge to tell me to not post anything on YouTube. So it seems like that's a high concern, right? Transparency, I guess, right? It's it's costly these days. So that happened. Now I have to do some research because I have one ability that I don't know if I've mentioned this before, but I have I don't know, people always seem impressed by my ability of taking notes, impeccable notes. Um, so I do have a very good recollection of what was said exactly. Um, so I don't know if that I don't think I could get in trouble for transcribing what people said. Um, so I'll do some research, and if it's allowed, I'll post my transcriptions of what transpired. But it was a very interesting day, very very interesting for many reasons, right? So boy, I don't know where to start. It's one of those. I mean, I've never experienced this before, right? Like usually, I have a very good read of the situation, right? And don't get me wrong, I think I have a perfect read of the situation, but I've never experienced anything like this before in the sense that it's I don't know if anybody out there has ever felt this way, but it's one of those where you lost, but you really won. I don't know if that makes sense. Um, I don't know if that would make sense to anybody. It feels like I lost. Like legally speaking, like if you look at what happened, it looks like I lost. But I think in reality I won. Um, and when I say this, it's based on really on statistics, right? So a lot of strange things happened today, and I mean, there's one that could be a coincidence, right? But the second one, I think, um, yeah, I think to be honest, I think my comment the other day, or uh, my speculation, right, the other day that the informant may have flipped William Kyle Adam, I think is actually spot on. Something really, really strange happened coming from Morgan Heibner. That if it's a mistake, if it was a genuine mistake that she made, it was a horrible mistake, right? But if it's the mistake is so rare, right? that this happened, that it had to be not only so rare, like also I see that there was deliberate effort on her side to be able to make this mistake. I think I'll have to get into it so you understand what I mean, right? So the first thing that happened, right? And again, I have impeccable notes of all this with case numbers and everything. I'll make sure to post those. But so we get there. Well, I'll do my research first to make sure that transcriptions from what transpired in court are not forbidden, right? And if that's the case, I'll post them. So what happened? So we get there 9 a.m., right? And the process starts by reading the dockets of the day. The judge, the honorable judge that presides the court, starts by reading docket by docket, and people introduce themselves, and they some people give an estimate of how much time they need to talk about the motions, and that's the first step, right? So here something unique happened, right? What happened was there was a gentleman who was an attorney, right? And he was representing the husband or ex-husband in an older marriage, like a couple that could be maybe mid-60s, early 70s, right? It was I'm going to describe the people involved because in case authorities ever see these videos, they can track exactly which case. Although, if I can post the notes, I'll post it, right? And I have the case number in my notes. I remember I took note. So the attorney, he was dressed. I'm going to describe him, so maybe he could be located in the cameras, right? He was dressed with a sports jacket, pretty much like this one, or very similar, right? It was green, but a lighter tone of green. And the attorney was a man maybe a little bit older than me, maybe early 50s. His skin was lighter than mine. Complexion, I would say, more or less the same body type as me. His hair was brown, and he wore glasses, and his skin was a little bit, he was white. But he could have been descendant of Hispanics, right? I don't think he was Caucasian, but he was white. Anyhow, short hair, brown. That's the attorney. And the couple was an African American couple, mid 60s, maybe early 70s, and they seemed to be going through a divorce. And the husband was basically wanting to pick up some things from the house. So it was a simple case, Anyhow, they approached the bench, right? And I think they were on the record because they were agreeing to things, like they were kind of negotiating in terms of an agreement, right? So I think this was on the record. So the judge, and this is the same judge that later heard the hearing that I was attending to. So the judge asks a question about the motion, something that didn't make sense, right? And the attorney, who seemed to be maybe, I don't know, not having a good day, he said the following, right? And this was, everybody could hear this, right? It was in a private setting. He said, "Oh, Your Honor, I'm sorry. We filed this motion to coerce a settlement." And the presiding judge said, "What?" Immediately, like he stopped the man in his tracks. "You did what?" And then the man said, "Well, we filed this motion to pressure and coerce a settlement." And the judge went ballistic, right? He said, this is an abuse of court, and how much money it costs for the county to get a trial by jury, and he elaborated, right? I have to review my notes exactly, right? But the judge was upset, and the judge said something to the effects of, I'm going to ask you, this is what he said, I'm going to ask you, the attorney, if you're going to withdraw your motion, given what you just said. And the attorney, he didn't want to withdraw it, right? But the judge said again, "Listen, I'm going to ask you one more time. I'm not telling you what to do. I'm not giving you legal advice, but I'm going to ask you, given what you said and what I said, of how much money this costs and time this costs to the county, are you going to withdraw your motion? And then the attorney said, yes, we will withdraw the motion. And the judge insisted today or something along those lines, right? It was urgent to withdraw the motion because it was an abuse of the court, right? So I said, well, when I heard that, I thought, well, this is a fair judge. This is a judge that has a high respect for the quorum of the court. So I was hopeful at that point, right? Because my argument is exactly the same. And this is what is really strange to me. The number one thing, right? I mean, what are the chances, probability speaking, right? Like statistically, what are the chances that my exact argument, somebody in the morning while they're reading the docket is doing exactly the same thing that the petitioner in my case confessed doing? I don't know. I'm not a court reporter, or I don't really have the numbers, but from all the times that I've been in this court, which at this point is like 4 or 5 times, it never happened to me that another case has any similarities with mine. Sorry about that. I think the connection dropped when I was saying that. But it was very strange. It was very strange that that this case had the exact same characteristic, right? But I'm not there to judge, right? Like to judge what's happening, right? I'm just listening to what's going on. And then later on, something happened that made me think that, I mean, who could have? So at this point, right? I thought, well, maybe it's a coincidence, or maybe it's something else. Like, I don't know. I didn't want to make much of it. But then later, during the hearing itself, something really strange happened involving Morgan Hibner. And I mean, if it's a mistake, if it's an honest mistake, they're terrible attorneys. But if it's not, I have to think that the two things were orchestrated by William Kyle Adams, because who else controls Morgan Hibner to make that mistake, right? And the two things helped me. So the second thing that happened, well, let me finish that story first. So then, right, we start with my objective during the hearing was to get the transcript in which the petitioner is confessing that if we had reached an agreement in mediation, there wouldn't have been any need for me to go through a psychiatric evaluation. Meaning, so she's saying that the psychiatric evaluation request is a weapon. It's a legal weapon. It's not out of genuine concern for me or for the child. So that is bad faith litigation, and it's exactly the same thing that this attorney in the morning stated. It's exactly the same behavior that upset the judge, right? So as I was, trying to get this exhibit in, of course, Morgan Hibner objected to the exhibit, and I tried to argue in favor of getting it admitted, and the judge declined to get it in, right? He ruled against it. So the exhibit wasn't in at that point. I still had one more chance to get it in via the cross-examination. When I cross-examined the witness, the petitioner, I could ask about the incident and offer the exhibit again, right? To which Morgan Hibner would have objected, right? So before we go to that point, and in fact, when that happened, she objected, right? But even before that, when we're going to start arguing the case, the judge asked if I wanted to make an opening statement, right? Or if we both wanted to make opening statements. And Morgan Hibner declined. And I thought to myself, because he explained that we had 3 minutes for opening statements. I thought to myself, well, this is my opportunity, because I already tried to get it in. Morgan Hibner objected. I tried to argue with the judge the same thing that I wrote in the motion, in the response in opposition, right? And the judge didn't even let me finish my sentence. Like, he overruled, or or denied my offer of the exhibit. So I said, well, given that he's given me 3 minutes, unbounded, to make any statement I want, this is my opportunity. So my opening statement, and again, I have to see the transcription, but in my opening statement, what I said, and don't quote me on this, because I have to review what I wrote quickly what I was going to say before I said it, and I read from the paper, so I have to review what I wrote. But something to the effects of this, right? Your Honor, my name is Reynaldo Aguiar, and I would like to show the court that exactly the same thing that happened in this very same court this morning, that Your Honor stopped from happening and reversed immediately, it's exactly the same thing that the petitioner confessed doing. And it's recorded in video, and the transcript is available as Exhibit 2. The same exhibit that Morgan Hibner objected, and that the judge ruled against. Right? So I'm telling the judge in my opening statement that, and I reminded him of the case. I told the honorable judge that in that very same courtroom, in the very same day, a man made an exactly similar statement to what the petitioner made in the recording that is not being even looked at by the court. And I made the argument that looking at that exhibit is necessary to protect the integrity of the court. Exactly the same thing that he did in the morning. And if the court didn't give me the same treatment that it gave this gentleman in the morning, that would be fundamentally unfair. It means that the law is applied differently depending on who is the individual. It's not blind. Right? That was my opening argument. And here something happened, right? The judge, like, I could see the change, right? Before that moment, the judge was very, laid back. I would say he looked very neutral. Like, he didn't really address me directly, or, it was very formal. But the moment I said that, he leaned forward, he looked at me, and he told me, I did not say that. Right? It felt like it was a defensive position. It was a defensive stance. So I, of course, out of respect, I stepped back and I said, no, excuse me. I'm a pro se respondent, and I may not have the terminology right. But, what I'm trying to say is that, I would like to have the same reaction towards the petitioner that it was shown this morning towards this other person that said exactly the same thing that the petitioner is saying. Right? And well, long story short, it didn't go that way, right? I tried multiple times to get the exhibit in, and I was stopped in my tracks, like I couldn't even finish the sentence, right? Both by the judge and by the counsel of the petitioner. So, in that way, it felt like I lost, because, I could not accomplish my objective, right, of getting the exhibit in. But on the other side, I feel like on that side I won, right? Because now there is another case in the same court with the same judge with exactly the same issue, getting a completely opposite treatment. I mean, if this is not grounds if this is not grounds for, what do you call that, for appeal, I don't know what would be, right? So I don't think I got a fair access to justice, to be honest. But again, I feel like I won, not only because of that, but because I also got the opportunity to get a few other things in, right? And this is the second thing that happened. And this is why I think I don't know if it would be William Kyle Adams or somebody in that legal, because I imagine, right? It's probably like an organization. It's like there's a structure, right? It's not like it's Morgan Hittner and William Kyle Adams doing this on their own, right? Like alone. They must respond to somebody. They must report to somebody. And that person must report to somebody else. And it's a chain, right? Like it's a chain of command. And I imagine that my informants, some way that change, compromise somebody, right? Because how can these two things happen in the same day? The second thing that happened, right? And this is the more deliberate and coming directly from Morgan Hattner. So that's why I know this is coming from. This is why I say I'm not going to say that I know because I wasn't there, but this highly suggests to me that this is coming from them internally. Like the informant flipped somebody in that chain to make these two things happen, right? I don't know. I don't know who, but it seems reasonable, right, to think that. The second thing is even more serious because it implied. I mean, this other thing, right? Somebody could have instructed this person to make this mistake. I get that, right? Like to give me ammunition, right? But the second thing implies Morgan Hittner intentionally introducing an exhibit with days of preparation in advance and introducing an exhibit that would actually help me. And not only that, bringing it up during the hearing while she has me on the stand, right? I mean, there has to be design behind this. And who can design what Morgan Hittner does? Well, William Kyle Adams or somebody that he reports to, right? So this is exhibit, and this is what she did. I'm sorry, I don't have the folder with me, but she got an exhibit in. It was a post, and I'm going to go over a little bit about the strategy because I understood the play as well, right? Because now that I lived it, and by the way, like this play, I already been on this play before, so I know how it works. And when I say that, I'm referring to Mark Stewart, right? It's exactly the same play. Yes, so she gets, so I mean, I'm going to explain the story in a bit, but so she gets all these little posts, like she printed a few of the posts in my website, and she created exhibits with them separately, right? A lot of them, so it's exhausting the process, right? And one of the exhibits that she picked was a post that I wrote, I don't know, 5 months ago, in which I posted a letter that I sent to the Venezuelan consulate and the Cuban consulate and all these consulates of the governments that are controlled by this network, asking for POW status, right? So she picked that one and she put it in the exhibit. And when she had me understand, she starts questioning me about that, right? And then she's like, I mean, she's like making it sound like I'm crazy. Like, I mean, that's the intention. Sorry, the video is getting again a little bit. Let me see if I can save this. 1 second. Okay. Okay. So so she starts reading the post and making it sound like I'm crazy, right? To get under my skin. But like I have thick skin, and it doesn't matter. And then she asked me the question, well, what makes you think that you could ask for asylum? I said, well, obvious, because I already asked for asylum against the Venezuelan government before, and it was granted to me by the Canadian government. I'm a protected person according to the Geneva Convention. When I said that, Morgan Henry, what? And you have documentation to prove this? Of course, I have all the documentation you want. Like, I am a protected person according to the Geneva Convention. And this is a terrible mistake of Morgan Hitler, because she's asking me on the stand, and she's getting into the record that I am a refugee that claimed refugee status according to the Geneva Convention of 1949, and was granted to me by a foreign nation against the Venezuelan government, the same government that I'm alleging that is trying to harm me. And this is in the record of that. So when she realizes that I'm not bluffing, that this is actually true, there was I don't know the camera setup, right? Like, I don't know if this is visible, but like there was a moment in which the judge and her, they looked at each other, and the judge immediately said, hey, let's move on, let's change the subject, next issue, right? Of course, because this is a very serious thing. I'm telling you that the things that I'm writing about, I'm not just a random person. I'm a refugee, and not any refugee. I claimed refugee status years ago against these very same people, right? Now, I'm not alone, but I imagine that a serious judge that hears these allegations, right, has to at least question whether there could be any truth to this, right? I mean, if the person is saying that he feels that he's in danger, and he's saying that he already claimed refugee status against these very same people, and it was granted to him, I mean, I think any reasonable person would give this person the benefit of the doubt, at least, right? Because, well, it's not an easy process to get refugee status from any country, right? This is a process that requires, it has a heavy burden of proof. It's also a tribunal. You have to go in front of a judge to get this, right? It's not something that you get in an office. You have to have proof of what happened, and the judge has to decide, right? So this is it's the barrier, right, to get that status is high. The burden of proof is high, and if I met that burden of proof against proving facts committed by this same government, how can they question them, right? How can they order me to a psychiatric evaluation? It would be the equivalent of saying that the entire Refugee Board of Canada is delusional, because that also has levels of approvals. Like, even if a judge says yes, the process of getting protected person status in Canada has levels of approvals as well. It's not the judge making the decision in a vacuum, right? So it's a very hairy situation, right? And for them to now say that they didn't hear it, right? It's in the record. She asked me the question. It's in the exhibits. We're admitted, right? And it's also in my notes, right? I took notes of what I said. So I don't know. It feels like it was a gift, right? Like somebody put that exhibit in Morgan Hagner's folder for me. And I have to wonder who controls Morgan Hagner, right, to make that happen. So now that is in the record, right? And also my opening statement, in which I point out that this very same judge in the very same court made a completely opposite decision or comment, or took a completely different attitude towards this man than the petitioner, right? And also, even if the exhibit is thrown out, in my motion of opposition, the statements she made are written in the response. He has to read the response, but he can't say that he didn't read it. So when he reads those two lines where she says that if I had settled, there would be no psychiatric evaluation, he has to question the petitioner, means to be consistent with his comment to the man in the morning, right? So I don't know. I think, oh boy, I think this is going to be one for the ages, right? Now, I also understood the play. I think the play is not so much about. I mean, if they manage to get me into a psychiatry practice, right, and medicate me and apply the vaccine against the competition, I think that's of course a win. But the other play was, well, what happened was, right, during the day, this started at 9 a.m. right, and went on till almost 4 p.m. So it was all day basically, right. So throughout the day, multiple times, I raised the issue that given that they were asking for a psychiatric evaluation, and that was the basis for all the sweeping temporary orders they were seeking, possession of the child, possession of the house, it's like crazy, very, how do you call that? Very extreme temporary orders when there's been no incidents of violence, of danger, or nothing, right? So I kept rising during the day the need to address the psychiatric evaluation first, because if that is addressed and I manage to prove bad faith in the motion, as what happened in the morning with that other man, the judge should ask the petitioner if she's going to withdraw the motion, like if he's consistent, right? And that would save the entire day of the court, which was precisely the argument that he made to that man. He said to that man that it was a costly process for the county and for the court, right? And he wanted to save the time, and that's why he asked the man if he was going to withdraw the motion. But in my case, when I brought it up that addressing this first would save the court's time, he said no. And then we went through this exhaustive process of negotiating every single item in the list that Morgan Heidner had, which we had like 46 items. And it was a very exhaustive process, right? And when I say, like, I've been through this before with Mark Zurich, exactly the same. He got me in a room, he kept me there for the entire day, just wearing me down, right? So just wearing me down during the entire day. So at the end, you're psychologically tired and you want to get out of that room, and you will agree to things that you might not agree to otherwise, right? Like you might say, yes, I'll go to the psychiatrist and I'll take the pills, right? I don't know. But anyhow, at the end of the, like almost at 3:15, right, p.m., then the real thing started. That's when Morgan Heidner got me into the stand. And then she starts like asking me post by post. Like she starts asking me about the website and reading the post, and like it's absurd. Like she's not qualified to judge any of that. She's not. She doesn't work for the FBI. She's not. Anyhow, I played it along, and she asked me questions, right? But the interesting thing is which exhibits, because she cherry picked from the website, okay, to pick these exhibits, and the idea is to make you sound crazy. So she started by random posts, like like the POW, like they don't name any individual specifically, but name the organization, okay. And the idea is to make you like she would make faces, and she would like to make me sound like I'm crazy, right? And if somebody puts you in a stand and starts implying that you're crazy, I guess a weak person could have the inclination to say, I didn't write this, which is what they want, right? That I denied that I wrote it, which I'm not going to do. Like I back my work 100%. my word is my bond, right? And interestingly, when I started talking about, because she started asking me like open-ended questions, which she shouldn't have, right? But I guess it was like trying to get me to say things that might sound fantastic, right? So to ground it, I start talking about my US patents that are attributed to Google, in which I'm the sole inventor in this very topic. The judge immediately stopped me, right? He stopped me. He said, you can talk about that. Because, they don't want to be anything on the record that legitimizes what I'm saying. Right? So that's that. But the play really, right? So after she goes through this process of like 30 minutes, post by post of generic posts, but that are fantastic. I mean, posts that, if you say that to a person that doesn't work in counterintelligence, they would think that it's fiction, right? Like this, somebody invented this. And after that process, right, now, like when she went through all this generic post, then the real meaning of the hearing started. Then she started picking or talking about exhibits, and this is visible because the exhibits are filed in an order, and you can verify the orders in the exhibit to see that what I'm saying is the truth. So the last set of exhibits that she, went through, which I imagine were in order, were about specific people, and this is good because this reveals who are the people that they're concerned about exposure, right? Because what they want to do is basically to say that these claims don't hold any water because the judge decided, a family court judge, we have no standing on this type of matters, decided or said that I needed a psychiatric evaluation. So, but the interesting thing is the people that she picked for those exhibits, right? So I'm going to name them. So there was a post about Robert Mueller, right? The former FBI director that lives 200 feet away from my house at Lake Point Estates. I mean, think about it, right? If anybody can pull this off, it's a person that was the head of the FBI and the CIA. I mean, there's nothing fantastic about this. It's logic. Of course, he can do it, right? And what are the chances that that person lives 200 feet away or has a house? I don't know if he lives there. Maybe just the house is in his name, right? I don't know. But the house is 200 feet away from my house and has a secret gate that goes outside. It's Eckhart, the one that goes outside, right? He has the other one, but it's the same, right? It's a mini compound. So that's one person that she named, right? The first person that she named was Robert Mueller, and I think the order is important, right? I think that probably shows their level of concern. The second person that she named was Phil Denning, right? The president of the HOA. And of course, she made sure to interrogate her witness, the petitioner, and the witness said that the president of the HOA is a respectable man. Like she actually vouched for the. Imagine that. Like, I mean, it's just so obvious, right? Like, how do I say this? How can the mother of your children vouch for a man that is harassing you? It's crazy, right? It's crazy. Anyhow, so she vouched for. So Robert Mueller was the first. Then they mentioned in the exhibits Phil Denning. They mentioned the Chinese man from the house in front, this Salt Typhoon House, 26711 Valleyside Drive, Katy, Texas. And they mentioned specifically that incident that is posted in the Key Opinion Leaders website, in which that man ignored the private property sign that I had outside and put his hand inside of my gate, holding a phone, right? At the peak of the conflict with Liana Technology. That post specifically, right? And the petitioner testified, almost crying, that she felt ashamed that I almost got into an argument with that man when he trespassed. So she was crying because I was defending my right to private property. Right? Anyhow, so that was the other one. The pretties were also mentioned because Citgo, it's important. And the Chinese safe houses that are on the side of my house at Britton Ridge Drive, they were also mentioned in the testimony of the petitioner, led by Morgan Hitler, right? And the other character that they mentioned was the law firm, of course. So so Morgan Hitler made sure to ask the question to the petitioner on the stand if I had any problems with HOA, and then the petitioner volunteered that yes, and in fact, I'm being sued by a reputable firm. Well, she probably didn't say reputable, right? But it was implied the way she spoke about the firm. Because of the multiple violations to the HOA rules, like having the sign on the lawn that says private property, and many other issues without mentioning anything specific, basically giving again the reason to the firm, right? To the Roberts Markel, that firm that has the name escapes me. It says long name is the 5 partners last names, right? Roberts Markel. I'll find the name. Right. So the petitioner makes sure to state on the record that I've had issues with this HOA and this law firm, this reputable law firm was suing me because of the multiple violations that I've incurred. Basically, again, siding with the harassers, right? And then, the cherry on top, the other exhibit that Morgan Hitler picked was that post or that journal entry that described the episode in which what's his name? King Everett, Daniel King Everett, I think is the name, which is the man that was in the safe house diagonal to me, basically in front of Damon Sachs at Lake Point Estate, which I believe was really David Molero, right? So they made sure to also pick that exhibit, like to kind of say that this is crazy, like this is. And here, I don't think it's because David Molero is important to the network to that level, right, to Robert Mueller's level, but because the high liability if he gets caught and he talks, right, and discloses his relationship to people close to me. So I think I think it's kind of a quid pro quo, right? Like if you do this for us, we'll do this for you, right? We'll help David Molero in this way, right? We'll put him in the combo, so to speak, to help him, right? So I think that's kind of the dynamic there. It's a bit of a quid pro quo between the lawyers and the petitioner, right? But of course, that's I'm speculating there. Right. So, and the other thing, they seem to want to. I mean, it seemed like an intimidation tactic, right, to me, that Maria Hitler started talking about how much money I spent sending the books to people, right? And then she was like doing the math, and you're spending this much money, which means you're crazy, right? Investing your money in sharing knowledge with people is something that only crazy people do, apparently, right? If you're willing to put your money where your mouth is, apparently that's crazy in the Texas courts. So anyhow, I said yes. I sent the books. It's my money, and if I want to give exposure to the book in any way I see fit, you're nobody to question that. More or less what I said. Like I may have been more polite than that, but so I guess the play there. It's a psychological tactic, right? It's like if you keep sending the books, we're going to call you crazy and we're going to take away your child, right? With the psychiatric evaluation, it's kind of a veiled threat, right? So I ramped down the book mailing effort is what they want. Oh, and they also made a big thing about the wrapping because I made an explicit comment that the people that get the book wrapped are more prominent, right? It's a prominence marker. So they started making calculations about how much money I have spent in wrappers, in Amazon gift wrappers, which also means that I'm crazy. I mean, if you think about it, right? Yes, I mean, these wrappers cost money. And every time I buy the wrapper, the gift wrap, I am paying for it. But I am paying for it because it's a way for me to hint to authorities when they eventually see this, that this is a prominent agent. So I'm spending my own money to help the authorities get them faster, right? I mean, and she's calling me crazy for doing so, right? So I guess that shows, what the, how do you call that in English? The values, right, of the people that are working on this. Anyhow, a super interesting day. But again, as I was saying at the beginning, I feel like I won. Because first, now I have a case number in which the judge ruled, well, not, it wasn't a ruling, but he is strong, like he was very, I mean, I hope this is recorded somewhere. He was very strongly, reacting to this man saying that he filed a motion to coerce the other party. And now the judge is in a bit of a pickle because he has to decide on this very same matter with exactly the same argument written in the response in opposition, right? So he has to either ignore what I wrote, or he has to take the exact same action towards the petitioner, right? Imagine, right? I don't know. But in any case, it's a win for me because now I have this information and I can action on this, right? I can appeal if they, if they move forward, right? Also, I was able to get in the record that I'm a protected person who is protected against the Venezuelan government by the Canadian government, according to the Geneva Convention of 1949, which is an international treaty. Right? I mean, that's a huge legal win. That's in the record. Well, it should be in the record, right? I said that next to the stenographer while I was on the stand under oath. So yeah, it should be in the record. And also, I got to see what are the agents that they're afraid of getting, in legal trouble. Phil Denning, Daniel King Everett / David Molero, Robert Mueller, the lawyers from that other firm that sent the harassing CIA person, and Phil Denning. Oh, and of course, the pretties, the Chinese man in front here at Valley Side, and the two Chinese houses, on each side of Britton Ridge Drive. So obviously, if you look at the distribution, right, half of the people are Chinese in that set. So that tells you about who's paying for this, all these legal actions, right? Anyhow, so I think those are the updates. We have to go back on Wednesday to hear, I guess, the ruling. The judge asked us to reconvene on, I think, on Thursday. And we'll see. We'll see what happens. Well, thank you so much for your time, and talk to you soon. Bye.